the reports come from? Did you get an initial?
One Pod Vader.
That's football.
Every angle of the NFL covered.
All that kind of stuff, I get it.
This,
no question about it,
is Next Fan Up.
We're going to unleash hell here in December.
Hello and welcome to SuperFan Friday. Hey everybody, it's Pod Vader here. I'm just here to give you a little intro and a little outro, but we really do have two SuperFan battles here ready for you. Now, the second one is a game that I think is most likely going to happen. That is between the Raiders and the Chiefs. Monty and Nick will be here to break down all of the intricacies of that particular matchup. Plus, they always provide a very fun SuperFan wager. So you're not going to want to miss that. Our first SuperFan battle is a game that, as of the recording of this show, we have no idea if the game is actually going to happen, and that is because the Tennessee Titans are still reeling from a COVID-19 pandemic in their own team. So we don't know if it's going to happen on Sunday. It seems unlikely, even as of the recording of this particular podcast. We don't know if it's going to happen at all. So basically what we're going to do is we're still going to provide you with the SuperFan battle for the game that woulda, coulda, shoulda happened. And that's how I want you to sort of listen to it and accept it. Because even at the time that you post this, at the time that this podcast goes live, we might already know what the final outcome is going to be for this particular game. But we have no clue as of right now, and we have to move forward as if the game is going to happen. And so if it doesn't happen, this is what we believe would have happened. So this is the woulda, coulda, shoulda SuperFan battle between Rob and Jordan for the Titans and the Bills.
Battle of the SuperFans.
Okay, welcome to a SuperFan battle. This might be the first battle ever for a game that might not even happen. I'm Jordan, your Titans SuperFan, joined by Rob, the Bills SuperFan. And we don't know if this game is going to happen, of course, because the Titans are having a COVID outbreak. And this is a story that just continues to develop. So let me just quickly go through all the Titans players who have COVID. So we have our long snapper, Bo Brinkley, a nose tackle, Daquan Jones, and Jeffrey Simmons, outside linebacker, Kamalai Correa, cornerback, Christian Fulton, who's our rookie, second-round rookie, receivers, Cameron Batson, Adam Humphries, and Corey Davis, and fullback, Kari Blasingame. And I believe there's still a couple more positives that we don't know about yet. So obviously that's a big component of the Titans. I don't know. They were just tested positive this morning, a couple of them, so the game might have to be pushed back to Monday or Tuesday if it does happen. I can't imagine how many practice squad guys we're going to have if it does happen, so I'm sure it'll be super ugly. But, Rob, what are your thoughts on the chances of this game happening and what you would want to see happen?
So first off, right off the bat, I don't want to see a forfeit. I think forfeiting would be stupid. I get if they do it, it's because they just don't want. I mean, this is going to require a lot of fixing. This is something they should have maybe had a little bit of a better plan before the season, but I guess at this point it is what it is. So I don't know what I mean. The Bills have a game on Thursday night against Kansas City, which if the Bills win this game against Tennessee is going to be a pretty important game. So I was kind of hoping to kind of be on that Thursday night spot. Doesn't look like if this game happens, that game will have to get moved to like a Saturday or Sunday or a Monday night. I don't know exactly how they'll play it, but everything right now is kind of up in the air. There are two, like you said, two Titans tests. One is a new positive and one is an inconclusive from yesterday. So we won't find out those names. This is being recorded in the morning. We won't find out those names until probably about 4:30 when they put whoever it is on the COVID list. So yeah, I mean, I think we got a lot up in the air. I want a football game. I mean, I'm a football fan. If the teams both go a couple days with testing, everybody testing negative, I would love to somehow, some way get a football game going. I just hope the league doesn't take the nuclear option of forfeiting a game, because it's also going to make, it's also objectively unfair if the Bills, do continue their run and they're up in those top two spots in the conference, that they get a forfeit win and someone doesn't. And the same thing for the Titans. Like, if they're up in that area, because they're a really good team as well, which is why we're having the battle, and they don't get a bye if they're the number one seed, or don't host a playoff game because they lose out the division to Indy or something like that because of a forfeit. I think it'd be silly and dumb.
Yeah, I know. It'd be one thing if this was like a Jets-Giants game, but right now we're like division leaders right now.
Yeah.
And I'll just say, I guess for a second, I'll pretend the game is going to happen and say that I think it would definitely be super ugly for the Titans because of how many people were missing on defense and all these receivers were missing. I think our offense kind of came through it. Aside from the receiver core, the other position groups are good. So I think we would probably just try and just pound the run and go to Jonnu, and maybe AJ Brown will be back. And then maybe invent some crazy like onside kick strategy, because I don't think our defense is going to have any prayer of getting any stops with all the people we're missing anyways. So our only hope would be some type of crazy like 30, 40-point game, I think. But I think the Bills are like one of the worst teams for this scenario. Like, if we were playing the Jets, maybe we could have a chance with our practice squad guys. But I think you guys obviously are rolling on all cylinders right now, and it would be pretty ugly. But I mean, I hope that we could play football, because if we don't, I'm worried about what's going to happen to the season. I'll also just say, I do want to just defend the Titans for a second, because I know everybody loves to just get angry on the Titans and blame the Titans for the whole thing. And I know the NFL is going to want to do that also. But I would shift the blame a little bit to the NFL, because I can't believe they didn't have some type of makeup week at the end of the season, because we know with COVID, if any one game had to be rescheduled, it wouldn't be, this wasn't that unlikely of a scenario that the next week would be in question as well. And so now I don't know, the schedule is just so inflexible that it's not going to allow things to happen. So they might have to just forfeit us, which, I mean, it gives you a win, but then what about the Steelers, who still have to make up our game? So there's not going to be a fair option no matter what happens, because they don't seem to really have had any contingent plans. And I think it had to be somewhat expected, especially if you look at what happened with baseball, that this was going to happen to at least one team, just with the amount of people that are on NFL teams, that and how easily this virus spreads, that this is not that unlikely of a scenario. So I just wanted to get that out, because I'm sure everybody's just going to be bashing the Titans exclusively for messing up the season. But I'm sure by the time the season ends, we aren't going to be the only team that this happens to.
Yeah, it's I do think the league should have more stuff. The league is definitely going to throw the Titans under the bus on this one. They already have in a couple ways. They had that conference they did with all the general managers and the coaches, and they literally showed 5 minutes of tape of the Tennessee Titans not following protocol in the office. So they're already kind of preparing the narrative. And, I don't know what's real and what's not out there as far as, the practice and, when it was and when the league said, no, you can't. But I mean, all that stuff, it won't, if the league doesn't want it to matter, it's just not going to matter. And the timelines are a little funky, but I guess that stuff's all going to play out. But we're here to talk about a football game, so I guess we'll do our best to figure out exactly how this would play out if these two teams, as they're made up right now, would play. And I think, kind of to your point, I think that the Bills offense would just feast on their defense. It's for a couple reasons. The main one would be your defensive line, and we kind of touched on this in the Slack channel. But as a team that hasn't garnered a huge pass rush, I mean, you do have a couple guys. I think Landry's a real good speed guy, and Jadeveon Clowney can wreak some havoc. But if they don't have the gaps to get through, because that defensive line can't do anything, it might not really matter too much. And you're looking at potentially, I think with the names that you mentioned, their best starter along the defensive line would be maybe Jack Crawford, who is he's maybe a fringe starter, but the other names that would be out there would be like back of the roster, practice squad guys, and that's your starting, right? You're talking about the backup guys who are going to have to play probably 30-35% because you're going to want to get a decent rotation. So, if that were to hold true, Josh Allen's throwing that ball all over the place. He's going to be able to sit in the pocket longer than Lint, and he's going to be able to find guys. Also, your slot guy, Fulton, if he's out from this game, I forget his name, who would be playing on Beasley, but I think he's a 7th round pick. What's that?
That's Chris Jackson, 7th round pick.
Okay, year. Yeah. I remember what pick he was, but oddly enough, I didn't remember his name. But that's a huge mismatch. Beasley is one of the best slot receivers in the league. Has good rapport with Josh Allen. You've seen the past couple weeks, and plus you have Diggs and John Brown on the outside. And honestly, the Bills will probably just run a lot of 4 wide out there, spread them out, and kind of add a little bit of tension to that defense, which would be the smart thing to do. But I think the Titans would definitely have a lot of problems with the Bills on the offensive side of the ball. I think the Titans, when they're on offense, the Bills are missing Matt Milano, the tight end or the outside linebacker who, when he's in, covers the tight ends and does a good job of it. But when he's not in, teams tend to just destroy the Bills with their tight end. So I could see it being a big Travis Henry, Jonnu Smith game. Jonnu Smith, one of the rising stars in the league. I think he's a fantastic tight end, and I think he would eat in this game if it were to come out. It would be a high-scoring game, but I just see no way that Tennessee would be able to keep up with the Bills with the rosters constructed how we think they would be if they have a game.
Yeah, I mean, even if our offense did great for normal, for a normal game, and we scored 28 points, that's still, it's probably not going to be. I mean, we would literally have to score every single possession, I think, in order to keep up with you, unless we start getting some onside kicks or something like that. We might be missing Christian Fulton, but I don't even know if Adoree Jackson is healthy or not yet, because he had been on IR when this happened. So if we were missing him also, then there's, we got to try out 36-year-old Jonathan Joseph out there, who would basically be our top corner. It would really just be a mess on defense. I would almost want to see it just to be curious of how Brady could possibly make a game plan.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know what he would even do on defense. I think you just punt completely and just do every onside kick and go for 2 and just play crazy and try to just score more points than them if you can. But
yeah, you'd have to go mad and crazy and do silly stuff the whole game. It'd be fun. It's disappointing because we're kind of having fun with it, but make no mistake, if this is full team on full team, this is a really good game. In Tennessee, couple undefeated teams that can score, teams that have defenses that can do some things. I mean, this would be teams with questionable kickers. This would be a fun game. But unfortunately, just with the way circumstances have kind of played out, we're not even our best case scenario. It looks like what we're going to get is a team that's going to be missing 14 guys, which it's tough.
Yeah. And hey, one thing I'll say, if they do end up forfeiting this game, maybe it'll just get made up naturally if we meet in the playoffs.
That could happen. I really hope they don't forfeit it. But yeah that could happen. Oh, we could definitely see each other in the playoffs, regardless of what happens with this game.
Yeah. So I know I'm kind of upset because this really would have been a marquee game. It's the 2 teams that have been more lower tier teams for a while, and the AFC have kind of risen at the same time. And right now are finally both at the top of their division and both undefeated. And it would have been really interesting if this was a real game with everybody healthy. So yeah, it's disappointing. I mean, I wish I'd be talking about one of our, just a random NFC game on the schedule or something that didn't matter that much. But
right,
obviously this is going to also affect, just because it's AFC team, so it's going to affect any tiebreakers in the AFC standings. And if we both win the division, then that affects the seeding for the 1, 2, 3, 4 spots. Or obviously it's going to hurt our chance of winning the division too. Or if we happen to top 4 wild card or anything like that. So the whole thing is unfortunate. I hope that the NFL can figure it out somehow. They haven't showed a ton of flexibility so far, other than trying to like jam the schedule in somehow in a way that's going to screw everybody. But I don't know. I mean, until we stop testing positive, there obviously nothing's going to happen. So hopefully we could go a few days testing negative. But if not, who knows what the NFL is going to do.
Yeah. I think if we go a couple days with negatives, they'll sneak the game in Monday or Tuesday. But it's still, we don't know, because it requires some things to happen, and we don't know kind of where they're at. So, yeah, it'll be an interesting next couple days.
Yeah, and if it does happen, I just hope that the result is that we don't pass on the virus to the Bills, and then we have.
Yeah, and I'll tell you what, man. They played the Raiders last week. Maurice Hurst ended up getting put on the list for testing positive on Tuesday, and there's pictures of him hugging Josh Allen after the game, and I'm like, no, don't do it.
Yeah, everybody needs to stay away from the quarterbacks at all costs.
Stay away from Josh Allen.
Okay, well, on that note, I wish normally I'd be wishing you luck for the game, but now I feel like this is the only battle where we're both rooting for the same thing, which is that there is a game.
Get to the game, man. Let's get to the game. That's it.
Yeah, I hope we get to play you at some point.
Yeah, for sure, man.
Okay. All right. Have a good one.
All right, you too.
And it is an AFC West matchup. Surely going to be the most competitive game of this weekend. It is I, your Kansas City Chiefs superfan Nick. I am joined here by Monty.
Raiders.
Yes, of the 2-2 Raiders, is that right? The Raiders already achieving their ceiling of 500 for the year. It's got to be just wonderful in Vegas right now, Monty.
They're throwing charity events, trying to raise some money. Things are going great in Vegas, but I'd have to say that the first part of the season schedule, this was our hardest stretch. So weeks 1 through 5 have been, very good opponents. It should get a little bit easier down the stretch.
Well, I'm sure that that getting easier starts this weekend. We actually don't know. I mean, in theory, this could be a game that gets moved just because the Chiefs did last weekend have one positive COVID test with a practice squad player. None since then, but they did play the Patriots on Monday night, and the Patriots have since gotten a handful of positive tests. So we're recording this on Wednesday under the assumption that these two teams are going to play, and hopefully they do. Hopefully everyone is nice and healthy. I do not enjoy seeing that photo of Mahomes, with his arm around now COVID positive Stephon Gilmore that keep popping up in my feed. But let's hope that these two teams get to play because it's just been such a tight rivalry within this division. The last 3 meetings, the Chiefs have. Well, let's see. The cumulative score has been Chiefs 103 to Raiders 22, and I think we're gonna get another. Maybe the Chiefs will triple, maybe just double the Raiders score this week.
That is harsh. The last few times they have not played well. Even not only have they not won, but they have not played well. Easily the worst games Derek Carr has played. And I think, from that Monday night game against the Ravens, it just feels like with Andy Reid's offense humming on all cylinders, people are so tense that if they punt or kick a field goal, they're going to be blown out of the stadium, that they just play tight, they just make mistakes, and it ends up being the worst game for a lot of quarterbacks in the season. And the Raiders are not good enough to overcome these types of mistakes. So hopefully, after an off season of focusing solely on the Super Bowl champs and the mindset of giving it your best shot, they can do a little bit better than they have in the past.
Yeah, I mean, as you mentioned, teams playing tight. It's part of what makes me. I'm still kind of trying to figure out this year's Kansas City Chiefs team. I mean, the offense has been as advertised. I mean, the Chiefs have so far played a division rival and 3 AFC playoff teams, and so each one of those teams were clearly kind of trying to give this offense their best shot at whatever they could try to figure out to confuse the Chiefs offense, because it'd be a big marker that they're going to be able to not crack their head on the Chiefs ceiling in the postseason if they can. And nothing's really worked like for a really long period of time. Bill Belichick, of course, was the best at it, got Mahomes kind of off his game for a bit. But overall, this Chiefs offense continues just to roll. But the biggest surprise has really been the defense. And, right now the Chiefs offense is ranked 4th in DVOA. The defense is ranked 5th. And if these two sides of the ball remain top 5 for the rest of the year, I just don't know who's going to be able to really take a swing. But and the defense, looking at it, they've had injuries, they've had suspensions that on paper they should have a lot of holes. And I've been trying to figure out just why they played so well. I think they're extremely well coached on that side of the ball. Steve Spagnuolo's staff has done a great job at papering over problems, and they have, I think, just good key talent in certain areas that is used well to paper over deficiencies. But I think a lot of it is kind of just what you're saying, in that every team is sort of having to play off their game because they know it's like, okay, we got to get points on this drive because otherwise we're punting to Mahomes. So we got to do some stuff in ways that we don't normally do it, and there's just no way around it. And so here we go, and it leads them into mistakes. And the Chiefs are just really good at kind of third down situations and all that kind of stuff. So it's going to be it's going to be difficult for the Raiders. I think what benefits the Raiders now, though, is just that it's a team that looked like a work in progress for a couple of years, and now it hasn't been all roses, but it still seems like a team that has a sense of identity and they know how they want to play. And especially with things going through the run game, it does take some of that pressure off Carr.
Yep, I think for the Raiders, the element that they're missing is they don't have any playmakers, right? So if you get a holding penalty or a pre-snap penalty and it's 2nd and 15, there's no doubt in your mind that Mahomes is going to get a 20-yard play and turn that into a first down. The Raiders have to stay ahead of the down and distance every single time because they don't have anyone that can get those huge chunk plays. So the plan for the Raiders, which, say what you want to about Derek Carr, but they've got to get positive yardage on every play, no penalties, and then string together these 10 and 12 play drives that eat up time off the clock to keep it away from their opponents. Even more important this week with Kansas City. But the problem is they just haven't been able to do that in the last couple of weeks. So, penalties, there's a touchdown. The ghost of Nelson Aguilar actually had like a 49-yard touchdown that take off the board because of an illegal formation. It's those types of things that the Raiders aren't good enough to overcome. So, yep, I think the running game is their bread and butter, the straw that stirs the drink. Trent Brown, our big tackle, is back at practice. He's still questionable whether or not he's going to play. Same with Henry Ruggs, who had, one good half against Carolina in the opener, but I don't know if he's going to play this week. I know Bryan Edwards is definitely not going to play. So the Raiders have no room for error against an average team. They can't have any penalties and they can't fall behind. An incomplete pass really puts them in a bad spot, which is why I think, Derek Carr is just so hesitant to take those shots, especially when he's thrown to the likes of Zay Jones and Nelson Aguilar. It's just really going to be difficult for the Raiders. I mean, it's possible. They just have to play literally a perfect game, the best game that they've put together in John Gruden's V2 era. And then the Chiefs would just have to take their foot off the gas because they've got, their sights set on January.
Yeah, I mean, that is something that tends to happen. I would say, while like Andy Reid continues, the meme about him continues to be, I think, in the national media of being bad at time management. That's actually something that hasn't really reared its head for the Chiefs in quite a while. But, what is a thing, and as any Chiefs fan will tell you, is that because he has his particularly really designed up plays that he really likes and he wants to spread them out throughout the course of a season, he has a tendency to throw out some fireworks and the first half of a game, and then once the Chiefs were up by a bit, they just kind of, we'll just throw out the vanilla, first day of training camp vanilla stuff. And he kind of goes to sleep for a while. And that has given teams, an opportunity to climb back into games. And I think it's one of those things where the Chiefs probably did lose some games because of that in the Alex Smith era, because, the Alex Smith Chiefs were sort of an offense that had not a giant margin for error. But with Mahomes, it's just been, even when that kind of stuff happens, he pulls a rabbit out of the hat at the end, and it just doesn't matter. But I will say, it does seem like, not everything's been fixed on the defensive side of the ball for the Raiders, but there do appear to be some signs of progress there. Having invested in the front seven, it's Max Williams, right? It looks really good. And, there's been a lot of investments in the back half of the defense. What have you seen in terms of improvement there?
Yeah, so it's still all potential, right? There's a lot of new names on there, and Max Crosby, is doing fine. He's got a few sacks. There was a coverage sack last week, and he got through a couple of times against Cam Newton. But they brought in defensive line coach Rod Marinelli, hoping that they could kind of get this defensive line to get more pressure on the quarterback. And aside from, I think, Max is 3, and there's 1 or 2 other ones, they just have not been able to get to the quarterback, which this just in is not going to go over well again. All the investments that they made in the defensive backs, just everyone's hurt, like Abrams a little banged up, but he's been playing, which is kind of fun to watch. He's definitely the bright spot. Trayvon Mullen's been playing pretty good, but why in the world would anyone throw to Trayvon's side of the field when they can just pick on? Last week we had Amik Robinson as a 4th rounder. He got burned on a big touchdown play. David Arnett's been out. He had that thumb surgery. So you just don't have to, I'd say Trayvon Mullen is going to be an okay cornerback in this league, but if you don't have to throw at him, why bother? And with all the weapons the Chiefs have, it's really good. They're really the only chance they have is to just have those long sustained drives. And having watched the last few games against Mahomes, even when there's a penalty or something happens and it's 3rd and 24, it doesn't matter because he just goes over the top and gets a 70-yard touchdown. So, the defense is everyone wants to talk about the quarterback, and I understand that, you need a big name quarterback to win in this league, but the defense is so bad. They haven't been able to do anything against the run. You saw the numbers they gave up against the Patriots. Sony Michel looked like an NFL running back against the Raiders. McCaffrey had a really good game in week 1, and that was against the rebuilding, new-look Carolina Panthers. So I think Clyde Edwards-Helaire could dominate, or Patrick Mahomes when he needs to convert. They should have a really good game. The only chance the Raiders have is really if Chris Jones is not in there, Trent Brown plays, they can get the running game going, and then, we're down to our 3rd, 4th, 5th string wide receivers, so Gruden's going to have to get creative and drop some tight end 2, or I think I even saw Jason Witten got a touchdown, or fullback is involved. But yeah, the defense is definitely a work in progress, and everyone's been injured. So that, to your point, there's a lot of people on the internet saying this could be the last game for Paul Guenther because the defense has been looking so bad in this first quarter of the season. And I hope that does not happen because there's just so many new pieces out there with no training camp, very few practices to get everyone on the same page. I think they have potential, and I know potential gets coaches fired, but with no preseason, I hope that he can survive this game. The defense shows some signs of life, and he gets another swing at him after your bye week later in the season.
Yeah, well, if he's going to go out, he's going to go out with a bang, it sounds like. And it's interesting. The more I think about kind of what you're talking about, I do think the conventional wisdom in terms of how you want to play the Chiefs is, are those long drives, running the ball, eating up clock, all that kind of stuff. But the flip side of that is that is that all the, kind of as you're talking about it leaves open so many more opportunities for negative plays because it's going to be a 15-play drive, and all it takes is one bad down and distance, 3rd and 10, and you just come away with nothing. Whereas, I think teams are afraid to go for the big play against the Chiefs, because they're low percentage plays. But I almost think that's kind of the only way you're going to do it because, I mean, really, from a depth standpoint, the one real big weakness for the Chiefs right now is their cornerback depth. I mean, they're getting Bashaud Breeland back from suspension this week, but Charvarius Ward is still, he's still nursing a hand. They haven't given him 100% of the snaps left, and everybody else, they're like dollar store guys. I mean, it's late round picks who somehow haven't been tested, I think, quite as much because teams have been trying to run the ball on the Chiefs rather than like going 5 wide. And with the Chiefs depth chart right now, you go 5 wide against the Chiefs, you're going to have like the 3rd and 4th safeties one-on-one on guys. And, if you're willing to do that and really attack, I think teams could find some stuff there. But, it just becomes this kind of psychological thing. Like the Chiefs psych people into doing the safe thing in such a weird way.
Well, I'm hoping that Ruggs gets on the field because it would be nice to finally have that ex-receiver stretch out the field and then open things up for Waller in kind of that mid-ground, like the 15-yard range, what you're so used to seeing Kelsey do when Tariq stretches out the field. So hopefully we'll see him back out on the field. Maybe they held him out last week because they were saving him because this is kind of, the measuring stick. The Raiders can talk all they want about how much improvement they've been making, but if they can't hang with the cream of the crop, especially in their own division, it's just a lot of talk coming from a team that lost another game.
Sounds like Ruggs is your X factor for this one.
If he plays, I mean, I don't even know if he's going to play, so I don't even put it on there that he's going to be the X factor. Like the X factor is going to be just like, I think they got to get pressure with their 4. If you try to blitz patching Mahomes, you lose fast. So it would really be nice to see Mad Max and Cleve Farrell and, I think Maurice Hurst is on the COVID list now, but get a little bit of pressure up the gut from like Malik Collins. Like those 4 guys, we need to be able to at least make Mahomes a little bit uncomfortable so that we have a chance out in coverage because our young secondary and brand new linebackers who are just getting on the same page. They played their first game last week with Kwiatkowski in the middle with the green dot. So I don't know. This defense is definitely work in progress, but there's just so many things. The X factor will be if Mahomes is just, he's taking the week off. He's just not paying attention. Maybe he's looking at those photos of his baby that's on the way. Maybe he's just getting distracted. There's just planning a baby shower, just something's just taking his mind off the game.
Well, even if he throws nothing but no looks, I think the Chiefs are probably okay on offense. But
maybe he'll challenge himself, try to do some trick passes, really try to push the envelope. He wants to get some new memes out there on the internet. Like I could see him going that route.
Yeah, very well could be. I mean, to the extent that I think that the Chiefs have an X factor in this one, I mean, I just think just a guy to name drop is Tershawn Wharton, who is an undrafted guy who, the Chiefs drafted a lot, a fair amount of people around the front 7 and things like that. And there were a lot of people they were hoping to see on defense, and kind of out of nowhere, Tershawn Wharton as a UDFA has a starting position on the Chiefs front 4. And has played really well. I think he's PFF's he's the top rated guy on the line for them for whatever that's worth. But he's played well against both the run and the pass, and without training camp, it's pretty impressive for a UDFA to be able to break the championship roster that way. So hey, I mean, if the Chiefs are going to have a decent chance of slowing Jacobs down and that ground and pound game plan, I think he's going to be getting his name called quite a bit. In fact, I think he had led the team in tackles against the Patriots when they were essentially trying that same approach. And because this is the Chiefs and the Raiders, I mean, and it is me and you, Monty. We gotta put a wager on this thing, right?
Yeah, you were thinking if the Raiders can keep the Chiefs from scoring 4 touchdowns in a quarter, right?
Well, I mean,
as long as they don't give up 28 points in a single quarter, I win, right?
We've already seen that one before, though, so wouldn't that be boring? I think we can just kind of go with the line. I mean, because this game does have the biggest line on it, which is, the Chiefs. Let's see. Oh, now I've lost it again. The Chiefs minus 11.5 is what I'm looking at in terms of Vegas odds right now. So, if the Chiefs, or if the Raiders cover, what do you want me to have to do here?
Well, I think that the one player, so the Raiders don't have any All-Pros, haven't had one for a while, but the closest player we have that's actually a household name would be Darren Waller, who is family tree goes back to Fats Waller, if you are familiar with that musician. I think he dropped an album this year, Darren Waller did. So I think that if the Raiders can cover the spread, and if we're going with the Vegas odds, I'll take that bet all the time. I mean, you gotta support Vegas any chance you can. You're gonna have to listen to his latest album and then record a little audio review of what the highlights were, what the weak parts were, and try to squeeze in as many Raiders jokes as you can fit.
All right, well, fair enough. Well, I'm going to do you one better because I think no better way if the Raiders fail to cover to celebrate the return of Bashaud Breeland to the lineup at corner would be for you to similarly become acquainted with his music. He is also a musician of some note, according to YouTube. He's got some videos out there. So I would like you to familiarize yourself with one of his songs and do a little dramatic interpretation that we can grace our audio waves here on the Next Fan Up podcast.
Well, I will tell you this is the Raiders Super Bowl. They look at the Chiefs as the one team they need to compete with. And so everything that John's been doing in the lab, as they say, is just to compete with the Chiefs. So I think I got a chance. I think that, I think the Raiders are going to keep it closer than Vegas and the world thinks they should.
All right. Well, I hope this bet is not swung one way or the other by the virus, but nonetheless, it's going to be fun. Always a pleasure, Monty. And, get your pipes ready to lay down some sick raps.
I will put some ketchup in some alcohol, and I will interpret this album if I have to. But I believe in the squad. Let's go, Raiders. Just win, baby.
Love the fact that Monty continues to put up wagers against the Chiefs, no matter what. At least he got the points. I think he's going to be doing some music research, but that's just me. What did you think? nextfanup@gmail.com. You can tweet us at NFU Podcast, facebook.com/NFU Podcast for all of our shows. Plus, we've got Doc's recipes over there. Hopefully our website is coming along. Who knows? This Pod Vader fella, he's pretty lazy. Thinks he's got all the time in the world, and he really doesn't. So hopefully we'll get that up and running. If you missed any of our shows, obviously they're available everywhere great podcasts are heard. So Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Pandora, you guys love us on Pandora. So keep telling your friends about us, sharing us, listening to all of the shows that we have. Obviously, the Superfan battles are hyper-focused to specific games. We do a full weekly preview every Thursday. We have a Thursday night preview. Sometimes it's just me. Sometimes we got the Superfans doing a Superfan battle. And on Tuesdays, we have this new thing where Eagles James and I, are getting together and providing you with some of the best sounds from the post-game press conferences that we will obviously incorporate into the show at some point. We love using some of those sound bites from all of the coaches and all the players. So be on the lookout for new changes coming to the podcast because we got to update the opens every now and then. And heck, if I'm posting 4 shows a week, maybe we should have 4 different opens. Aha! You think I've done this once or twice before. In any case, hope you enjoyed Superfan Friday. Hope you enjoyed Dad Joke Thursday. That's what I'm really hoping you enjoyed. And we'll talk to you again soon. Here's Kofi Annan. There you had it.
Dear friends and colleagues, saying goodbye is never easy. I believe we can all feel proud of what we have done together. And through it all, you have maintained your professionalism and commitment and remained true to the spirit of the Charter. That principle.
We go out, we hit people in the mouth.